It is an honor to be here with you this morning, and I thank you for your invitation to come and join in your worship. And it's a glorious day today, so it really couldn't be a better day to be here. And I had a chance to meet some of you last night and get into some conversations, and I look forward to talking with more of you today at the coffee hour. You may know from my bio and from some of our conversations that I recently returned from the Middle East. And the first reading that we had this morning from 2 Kings takes place in what is now known as the country of Jordan. On the eastern bank of the Jordan River, north of the Dead Sea, across from Jericho, lies this threshold zone. Not quite desert, not quite oasis, a place in between. And there, where the tamarisk trees line the dry riverbeds and reeds rustle like whispers of ancient prophets, we have the story of Elijah and Elisha walking along together. And you can still go and visit this place. It's a little bit off the typical tourist route. You have to park, and then you have to walk a ways across this dusty landscape until you get to the remains of an old Byzantine monastery and church built to honor Elijah. There's crumbling mosaics and half walls returning to the sand, and a forgotten altar open to the sky. And pilgrims once came here, they still do, marking this place where we believe Elijah was born, and then of course where he was taken up. So now, come with me, not as tourists, but as time travelers. And we're going to go back about 3,000 years, where a threshold event takes place. Here, the sun hangs low and it casts a bronze glow on the hills. The air smells of sage and salt and cooking stoves. Two of them move ahead of the rest of these 50 other prophets, Elijah the prophet and his successor, Elisha. And you may remember Elijah. He lived on the margins. He was fed by ravens. He once stood alone on Mount Carmel and called fire from heaven to rain down upon the false prophets and idol worshipers. And you can tell from our gospel story today that that approach was not so popular anymore. He confronted King Ahab. He even dared to cross Queen Jezebel, and he had to be on the run after that. He traveled 40 days into the Sinai. He listened for God on Mount Horeb, who finally came not in the earthquake or in the storm, but in the still, small voice, the sheer silence that followed great upheaval. Now Elijah's journey is coming to an end. He and Elisha arrive at the Jordan River, a ribbon of silty water, a boundary both literal and mythic. In the Hebrew imagination, it was a place of leaving something behind and then moving into something very new. And you'll remember the stories of the Israelites wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, then crossing over the Jordan into the promised land, and of Jesus being baptized there in the Jordan. Elijah takes his mantle, he rolls it up, he strikes the water and parts the waters like Moses. He and Elisha then cross over to the other side, and Elijah knows what's coming. He already has tossed the mantle across Elijah's shoulders while the younger man was plowing his fields. It is an ancient way of saying, I choose you to continue this work. Elisha may not quite know what's coming, but he's about to find out, because suddenly the air shifts. The sky brightens with this eerie light, and time slows, then fractures like a thunderclap, and a whirlwind takes Elijah up in a chariot of fire, drawn by horses of flame, and carries him away. The story could end with this spectacle, but the spectacular thing isn't the fiery chariot. The real marvel is what happens next. A man, young, afraid, unsure, stands on the riverbank watching his mentor disappear, and at his feet lies this mantle. And Elijah, I imagine his heart pounding, his stomach clenched, his palms likely sweating, picks it up. That's the miracle moment. His choice to pick up the mantle and say, even though I feel small, even though I'm afraid, and even though I feel like I'm standing in a whole pile of upheaval, I will take my place in God's unfolding story. Of course, that story does not end at the Jordan. This mantle passes on from Elijah to Elisha, from teacher to disciple, from generation to generation, from trembling shoulder to trembling shoulder, to you, to me, to all of us gathered together here this morning. The work of God has many chapters, and this ongoing story keeps unfolding and asks each of us in our own time, will you take up this mantle? Because we too are standing in a threshold moment in our own age of upheaval, ankle deep in a river of uncertainty. War in Gaza, in Ukraine, the drumbeat of escalation in Iran, our climate shifting, our economies reeling, truth itself caught in the crossfire. It would be no wonder if you just wanted to leave that dusty, moldy mantle lying there in the mud. I know that I often do. But Elijah picks it up, and he steps into a divine lineage, a thread of faithfulness, stretching from desert prophets and saints and apostles all the way to us here today. For you and I, in our journey with Christ, inherit this mantle, not made of camel's hair, but woven from the Beatitudes, the parables, the Sermon on the Mount, the laws that David spoke of this morning, a mantle stitched together with every act of courage and kindness, of resistance and mercy. We wrap ourselves in that mantle each time we choose compassion over fear. Each time we cross a boundary for the sake of justice, and each time we reject me and mine for us and ours. About a year ago, I moved back from serving the Anglican Church in the Arabian Gulf, and one of my friends came from Abu Dhabi the other day to visit. And we went and walked around Grace Farms in New Canaan, and maybe some of you have been to that place before. It's a wonderful space where architecture and ethics meet. And in one of the exhibits, I read a quote that has stayed with me. It says this: "In the end, the choice between self and other is, in an important sense, a false one. Our dignity, too, is threatened by our indifference to and estrangement from the suffering of our neighbors around the globe. Only in their liberation can we hope to find our own. Any dignity we might hope to secure will be shared. Any humanity we might hope to design will be something we share with one another." the church has changed shape through time. It has bent, it has broken, it has split, it has reformed. But as we will say in our collect of the day, and as we sang in our opening hymn, that cornerstone has never moved. The foundation is Christ, who walked the very same wild land of Elijah and Elisha, not in splendor, but in sandals, not with chariots, but with calloused hands, and a heart flung open to the world. So this question hovers over us this morning, heavy with heat and maybe a little less humidity today. Will you take up this mantle? You are not alone. You are worthy. You have the same double portion of spirit that Elijah was given, that same Spirit who baptizes with water and fire and who burns in the hearts of all who still say, I will, with God's help. We are always gathered and sent in this rhythm of our worship together. And as you are sent from here this morning, I hope you will remember the words that we will sing in our offertory hymn today. God of the prophets, bless the prophets' heirs. Elijah's mantle or Elijah cast, each age for thine own solemn task prepares. Make each one stronger, nobler than the last.